musing and contemplation, I finally narrowed down the subject of this first episode, which is going to be cricket commentators and iconic cricket moments. I recognize the title is a bit mouthful, but it's something which I have been looking into since the past couple of days, and I'm just intrigued by how seldomly we acknowledge the works of the commentators because their contribution adds a sizable amount to the viewership experience. And today we'll look at some of the iconic moments, and this episode is going to be highly subjective. What makes a commentator good or amicable? Um, I would say it's hard to pinpoint because every commentator tends to have a je ne sais quoi, but there are certain foundational boxes which one must tick. For instance, they should be eloquent enough and have a good voice or a decent enough voice, and they should be interesting and have a personality of their own. For instance, there would be moments in the game where they might not be happening a lot. For instance, say day it's day two, third session, and there isn't much action going on in the field. That's when the onus is on the commentators to make the game appealing to the viewers. And this tends to happen mainly in pairs, the likes of, say, Nasir Sain, Rob Key, or Nasir Sain, Mike Atherton, Mark Nicholas, Mike Slater, Mike Hussey, Ponting, or as these kind of people with chemistry, they tend to be intriguing to hear. Some of my favorite commentators are Nasir Sen, Harshav Hogle, Mark Nicholas, Ian Bishop, Mike Atherton, David Lloyd, Ian Ward, Ian Smith, and Michael Holding. Ravi Shastri used to be there, but the more I think about it, he tends to descend a bit in my rankings, surely because of the fact as to how repetitive he may get at times. For instance, his tracer bullet simile. It just doesn't have the same ring to it after the 499th time. So I would say that Harsha Bhogle is the best Indian commentator by far, and there is daylight between him and the second best, which could be, yeah, it's a tough one to call. Second best, maybe Saurav Ganguly. I'm not sure. In the present scheme of things, even Saurav Ganguly isn't commentating now, is he? So, if I were to say take all the Indian commentators, then I would perhaps say Ravi Shastri would be second, and third would be Saurav Ganguly. Now let's hear some of the iconic moments in the game which had some enchanting commentary, and this is in no particular order. So I will start off with the Headingley Test of 019, where our line fumbled and the game was single-handedly won by Ben Stokes. I mean, there was everything in that game, so much drama, I would say. The moment when when Tim Payne reviewed that Pat Cummins LBW, that was a bit foolish in hindsight, wasn't it? Had they saved the reviews, they could have reviewed the Lion LBW appeal of Ben Stokes. I mean, Joel Wilson had a howler there. That was pretty plumb, but he did not give it out. Had he given out and had Stokes reviewed, Australia would have won the test match, and Ben Stokes wouldn't be half the hero he would become after that test match. Never mind the fact that he won the World Cup for England.
Cut away for four. What an innings, what a player. Take a bow, Ben Stokes. The Ashes well and truly alive because of one cricketer. And that cricketer is Benjamin Stokes.
The next one involves two commentators, namely David Lloyd Bumble and Ian Bishop. It's from Eden Gardens World T20 Final 2016, and it involves Ben Stokes again, but as a villain this time.
Where's he go? Into the stand. Lights high in the air again. Lights, three sixes. Carlos Brathwaite! Carlos Brathwaite! Remember the name! History for the West Indies. What a match.
Next on the list is from World Cup 2003, which every Indian despises because of how it ended. I mean, Australia pretty much hammered India in that game. Ricky Ponting, Gilchrist, Damien Martin, they annihilated the Indian side on that day. Zaheer Khan wasn't at his best, and Tendulkar went cheaply, and that's the precise moment which I'm talking about. Mike Haseman um, calling out the moment when Glenn McGrath caught and bowled Sachin Tendulkar.
Oh, it's gone high. It's going to be out caught and ball by Glenn McGrath. It is. That is it. That is the big one they won in Australia. They've got Sachin Tendulkar in the first over. Glenn McGrath has got him again like he did in the...
This one involves another pair, and it's Ian Haley and Michael Slater when Sean Tate was bowling at express pace against Pakistan in 012 in KFC T20. He bowled at 160.7 kilometers per hour, which is 100 miles an hour.
Goes straight up to the screen, and the crowd love it. That's 100 miles an hour. A cricket ball does not get bowled faster than that.
This one is from arguably one of the finest test series you'll ever watch. The batsman being Michael Kasparovich, caught by Geraint Jones, bowled by Steve Harmison, commented by the late and great Richie Benaud.
Jones, Barman, Kasparovich, the man to go, and Harmison has done it to spare on the faces of the batsmen, and joy for every England player on the field.
This is my favorite one of them all, and it is Ian Smith calling the World Cup final, the Super Over. My goodness, was it a treat to hear. Of late, Ian Smith has become the de facto guy calling iconic World Cup moments, be it Grant Elliott's six of Dale Steyn in 015, or be it the Martin Guptill run out of Dhoni, and finally this the Joss Butler run out of Martin Guptill, which won the World Cup for England by the barest of margins.
2 to win. Guptill's going to push for 2. They've got to go. It's gone through. It's got to go to the keeper's end. He's got it. England have won the World Cup by the barest of margins. By the barest of all margins. Absolute ecstasy for England. Agony. Agony for New Zealand.
I'm sure I missed plethora of other iconic commentary moments, but here are some honorary mentions. When Sachin Tendulkar hit the maiden 200 of one-day internationals, Ravi Shastri was calling the game. The game was in Gwalior against South Africa in 2010. Then there was again Ravi Shastri moment where um, India and Pakistan went for a bowl out. Again from the same tournament against Pakistan when India won. When Srishant took the catch off Joginder Sharma, that was pretty iconic, at least for Indian cricket it was. Now we are seeing a lot of commentators who tend to be ex-players with a lot of experience, say Brendan McCullum, Michael Hussey, Michael Clark, Ricky Ponting, Brian Norris, and Tendulkar is also an occasional commentator, but the real question is, do you really need to be a seasoned cricketer before you make a decent commentator? I mean, Harsha Bhogle is a live example that you don't, the but the broadcasting panel tends to favor those who have had some experience. I mean, Sachin Tendulkar, in all honesty, is a pretty mediocre commentator. Never mind that he has, say, some 20 million runs, 20 million international runs, but he is a pedestrian commentator. Same goes with Mulli Karthik, Sanjay Manjrekar, Gavaskar. So they maybe experience is pivotal, but playing should not be necessary, and folks who have the passion for the game should be allowed to call the game at times, and they can be sacked as and when the situation demands. There are a few other commentators whom I would like to mention, and these are Bill Lawry and Tony Greig. Tony Greig was commentating in Ashes '05, and I have heard a sizable portion of his, and I wish I could include him, but for some reason I didn't quite find the footage which would be fitting. But he's right there at the top, at least was there. Then Bill Lawry, the same. The Sky team has remarkably improved with Ian Ward and Rob Key. It's perhaps one of the reasons why watching test matches in England is so alluring. I believe that brings us to the end of the first episode of Brooding Nights. I'm thankful to you for watching this through, and until next time, it's goodbye.